Heidi, howdy, howdy, this is JL for another Weekly Shonen Nonsense for this week of August 20th, 2023. Let's get to these comics! One Piece, chapter 1090. Man, there is way too much to cover in this chapter alone. I mean, first off, there's Kuro coming back for a cover page, just request, which is insane. He hasn't been mentioned in like a decade and a half. It's just incredible. And of course, we open with Luffy, threatening to kill York if the Navy doesn't get out of the way. We see like the Navy's reaction, Saturn being as cold as ice, just like, what happens if we kill our own men? We'll just have them breed and make more cold. And then we get a bit of the pullback to see what's happened to the rest of the crew. They're licking their wounds. No major casualties on the Straw Hats, thankfully, but unfortunately we lost Shaka and Pythagoras. Shaka and Pythagoras, the good and the wise part of Vegapunk, are gone. That's a shakeup. And thankfully, we're apparently got rid of the Cypher Pole members, got them at least, out of their cage and getting food, so they're not going to be hating them too much. They're still government agents, though. We have the Seraphim captured with them downstairs with these glorious bubbles that are made of sea prism stone, so that's going to be brought up later. And of course, we find out that apparently how Luffy saved him is he ran into the S-Snake, or the Hancock clone. And apparently, regardless of what version of Hancock it is, she is always going to be down bad for Luffy. So, of course, then we have to get escape plans here. We're trying to get out of here. We really can't take 100 ships with, 30,000 dudes, plus Kizaru and Saturn, though they don't know that yet. They're getting out there. They're trying to figure out how to get out. And, of course, they figure out they're going to go to Elbaf because, that's the next closest island. They have the log post pointing towards it. And that would be very convenient for them to get out of there with Vegapunk, because he hasn't in him with the Giants, at least a little bit. Then, of course, we try to get out. We're getting to the ship. We're getting ready. Bonnie wants pizza. And she seems a little happier. Seems like whatever happened the night before, she got over it and is now able to move on with life. But, of course, during all of this, unfortunately, we have to realize the well-laid plans of mice and men often go astray, mostly because there's a Rob Lucci in the room listening in and being a snitch. A dirty, dirty snitch. So now Kizaru knows what's going on, presents his plan to Saturn, and then jumps into the fray with Sentomaru. The end of the chapter has him clashing with Sentomaru, the greatest defense, as he states. Probably not really, but whatever. And of course, then we have Luffy mentioning, hey, someone here is strong. Now, again, great chapter, insane. Of course, Oda's weird naming scheme here, Kizaru basically is only in about 3-4 pages of the comic, and, his name is on the title. It's clearly going to have some meaning in the next chapter, probably. But in this one, it's more or less just there. He's here to jump into the fray and be a battler. Though, now we have a little bit of a weird thing here. So we have Luffy commenting, oh god, he's here, and we don't know who he is, or who someone is, and someone's strong. Now, in, just comic theory, it could be that he's mentioning Kizaru, which is a bit weird why he's afraid of Kizaru, who is just an admiral. While admirals are strong, we've never seen an admiral take on, say, a Emperor of the Sea on their own. And if they did, it's usually been at the very tail end of something else, and they're not really doing very well against them. I mean, heck, we see Green Bull at the end of last arc facing off with Shanks, and losing, with Shanks being about a few miles away. That kind of power. So, Kizaru coming in, being strong, seems a bit of a leap in my mind for Luffy to be shaken by, but there could be trauma. I mean, Kizaru's only ever been in a scene where Luffy's suffered a lot. So maybe that is Luffy noticing that. Or it's Luffy noticing Saturn, which is even more insane. Because he's like, oh god, this guy Saturn here is going to wreck my ever-loving shit. But regardless of anything, I'm looking forward to the next chapter in 2 weeks. But, you know, is that what it is? It's still One Piece, so it's still the best. Icehead Gill, Chapter 8. Alright, time for post-battle-ish. So we get Sana coming back and, coughing up blood. Apparently, using the relic really takes a number out of people, to the point where apparently these were weapons used to fight in the last Ragnarok. Which is a bit weird how Ragnarok happens more than once, but anyway. So, Sana used the bow, and that unfortunately recoiled pretty hard. And of course, the Lich isn't actually dead. The Lich is a undead being, so being crushed by a bunch of logs and cut in half really isn't really gonna do the job until someone else comes in and does it, destroying the relic that's keeping the Lich coming back. And apparently is a sword dude. I mean, okay, they're presented female, but they clearly point them out as male midway through, and their name is, and I quote, Greatest Frey. Apparently, this Greatest Frey character is apparently a major force in the world, being one of the 4 main antlers of the kingdom. And unfortunately, he's kind of just knows how to use the sword. Like, he is pretty much a great swordsman, and he gets lost immediately, doesn't know where he's at, and forgot why he was here. I think Zoro's disease is spreading, and I feel like the rest of Shonen Jump should be, in quarantine. But anyway, apparently he does have a second named Shiz who comes in and reminds him, oh yeah, we're here to kill liches and kill that Sana kid. Because apparently Sana is, dangerous and deserves to die, apparently. So, of course, Gil's not going to take that and attacks Shiz to save Sana. And that's when the Greatest recognizes Gil as Dreki's son. So, we have a lot to go from here. The chapter's ended with a question of what's going to happen to Gil. Is he going to be facing Greatest, or is he going to be running away? I mean, I would suppose running away, because, I mean, clearly, Gil is more like a level 8 brigand. He's, axe locked. We have a lord here, probably like a level 20, sword master here. There is no way he's going to survive if he even takes him on. Yeah, if he had the devil's axe, maybe, but no, not with this. I mean, and just going to tell you, it is impossible to reset a battle in a manga chapter because, I mean, it's written word. Where's the R button? Where's the start and select buttons, guys? I'm just saying, he needs to run. Martial Master Asumi, Chapter 9. And we begin with Nao's second fight, and it's already over. Yeah, her opponent has a glass jaw. That was not worth the 2 minutes of fighting there was. Either way, we get a bit of an explanation in this chapter about how, pros become pros in the MMA world, where they go to these kind of tournaments, win the tournaments that are run by promotions, and then they get hired by those promotions after they win. So it's, we see where Nao is trying to become a pro through this promotion, winning this battle, and proving that she can go pro. Unfortunately, she has a new opponent, Ricky, a 4 foot and 3/4 foot little imp child that is somehow, I don't know why, into Nito because she watched the fight with Kazlo on repeat and liked his triangle hold. It's just these are red flags, if you will. Either way, she's the final opponent of Nao, and, clearly she's a grappler, and the fight starts, and Ricky is swinging punches. So apparently she's been hiding the fact that she can, duke it out, rather than just, pulling them to the ground. So, of course, we have the next fight going to be Nao versus Ricky in the next chapter, seeing how Nao can deal with Ricky and her Ricky-ness. Overall, I liked it. I love Ricky's introduction. That suplex into a chokehold was wonderfully executed. Beautiful art there. But I'm also sort of in the middle of this here. It's still fun. We're really getting away from Asumi for a second, at least having him pull back, reprioritizing his own ambitions here. So good stuff. Look forward to the next chapter to see Nao kick more ass. Nue's Exorcist, Chapter 14. It's dueling time! Alright, so we got Gakuro versus Shiroha for the I guess, Nue's contract. This is a strange fight to begin with, but either way, it's not about, to the death, it's to the weapon breaking. So either they break the weapon or they lose enough stamina so they can't maintain their powerful hollow weapons. And of course, our boy has a major disadvantage. He's strong, sure, but he doesn't have any other tricks. He just has his sword. And unfortunately, she has Shikigami. Shiroha just needs to get some distance, summon her birds, and cause some mayhem. And of course, the strategy then is get close to her, don't get her any room to breathe, keep her down, pinned. Unfortunately, she has a lot of getaway tactics, and figures out pretty early on, oh, he can just keep coming back up if I keep attacking him directly, so she decides to run away. He gives chase, and she counters him by sitting on his face. Anyway, she starts summoning the Shikigami. He jumps up, tries to overpower her for a second, but then she uses his own sympathy against him by holding out her hand in front of his sword. And of course he stops because he doesn't want to cut or hurt her, because he's too damn sympathetic. So she's like, well, that's your fault. Birds. And now the next chapter is going to be, Gakuro versus Shiroha versus the birds. Yeah, just gonna say, I'm not very intimidated by one-eyed birds, one-eyed crows specifically, because to be honest, it's one eye, it's depth perceptionless. I mean, in the way they're drawn, just gonna say, like, the eye isn't centered, the eye is just off to one side, which just makes me go, okay, so it can only see on one side. It is clearly there's a blind spot to all these birds. If you can take advantage of that blind spot, you're good. But either way, it's still a bunch of birds attacking our hero, and they're crows too, so they're clever and crafty, and they're crows, so you know what's gonna happen if they catch him. It's gonna be a murder. My Girlfriend Gives Me Goosebumps, Chapter 15. Well, it looks like while normal girl Rinko is out and about downtown, she runs into our boyfriend character, Haruka. Unfortunately, they also run into Airi, the older sister of the girlfriend, Kisaki. And, of course, like GTA 4's Roman, they go bowling. And we get a bit of back and forth with our boy and the sister-in-law, essentially, revealing, the actual horrible truth of where the girlfriend's dark tendencies come from. And it's actually not as overt as anything else. No, like, tragic past, no beatings, no violence, no abuse, but rather inferiority. She has a massive inferiority complex with Airi. Kisaki has always been number 2, where Airi is number 1. And that's always driven her mad. While Airi got her parents to love her, Kisaki's always just been the second, the number 2 child, essentially, which is causing her to be obsessed with being somebody's number 1. Be it her boyfriend, be it a female friend, a girlfriend. So, regardless, she's twisted. And it seems that Haruka might be too, as we see the end of the chapter where he's sort of happy that it isn't some kind of weird, violent past, but rather just her own innate desire to be someone's number 1, something that is nebulous and confusing, dark and mysterious, scary, and he loves it. This is a fun new direction for the series. I was really worried because it was kind of one-sided, and even then it was sort of like, he was getting something out of her, but she was really more just being scary for the sake of being scary. But now we have 2 sort of like horror characters in a relationship, and the mayhem that can come from that can be glorious. So I'm looking forward to the next bit of this story. I'm looking forward to seeing where this relationship goes, who it runs up against, and how it can twist the world around them. Do Retry, Chapter 15. Alright, we're finding Dad this chapter. So apparently the information about his whereabouts came from some smugglers. Apparently they found him just kind of lying in the middle of the ocean, so they dragged him back to Japan. And he proceeded to just kind of wander around and eventually just kind of settle in the middle of the jungle they were using. So they're kind of just asking, like, take him home. He's supposed to be like a fighter, not some mooch that we keep in the forest. So could you get rid of him, please? So, of course, they find him pretty easily. Unfortunately, the ant basically pulls our boy back and says, wait a minute, why didn't you come home immediately? Why are you still here? So we get a dive into the trauma of our father, our dad. And unfortunately, it seems that his was not a kind one. Apparently, his whole philosophy is a strong heart. If you have a strong heart and a will to fight on, you'll exceed your limits and win the day. Like, you always have to have a stronger heart than your opponent. And he tried to use this as motivation for his soldiers who were fighting in World War II. For the losing side. So, yeah, the stress and fatigue finally got to his men, and they mutinied, went and attacked him in the middle of the night, not being able to take that strong heart nonsense anymore. And unfortunately, frustration goes two ways. He was also holding back his own frustration, and when he released it, he ended up killing all of his men. So, in a fit of, post-murder, he goes, yep, I'm just gonna unalive myself by jumping off this cliff. And he does jump off. Unfortunately, he fails to do the actual deed and gets, saved by the smugglers. So now, broken-hearted, he has abandoned his fantasy, his philosophy of the strong heart. And he wants his son to abandon it too. But his son isn't here to abandon his philosophies. He's not here to debate his father. He's here to drag his ass home to see his dying daughter. So now we have the unhinged father and the son that needs to get him back on track. So next chapter is going to be an emotional fight between father and son. Good chapter, believe me. It's phenomenal to see like this sort of like Pacific war scenario happening here, where of course the Japanese side was breaking down because of the stress of the fighting, and we see the result of this, just infighting and, unfortunately, mass murder. So, his father's not a good person, by the way. This is not a promotion of him. Yeah, he killed a bunch of Japanese soldiers, which is what the Americans were doing, to win the war, but at the same time, being on the side of Nazis, mind you, but at the same time, it's a little hard to, like, respect a man who just murdered a bunch of people who he was basically just dragging along with him, kicking and screaming into conflict. So, his philosophy eventually got people killed, and he realized it, and now he's trying to instill this realization onto his son, who really has never seen warfare. But I'm rooting for his kid here. It's not about philosophy. It's about your damn daughter, dude. Go see your dying kid. For the love of God. Kill Blue, Chapter 17. Oh god, I'm old again! So yeah, apparently, he just reverts back to being an adult in the middle of the theater. Ogami is kind of stuck in a bad situation here. So he runs off to the bathroom to try to figure things out when he gets, cornered by Tenma. And thinking quickly, he decides to use a voice changer he just happened to have and tries to negotiate his way out, only to be, fortunately or unfortunately, saved by Norin being kidnapped. So, rushing out of the bathroom, demanding Tenma to hug his crush, so that she can tell him about where these two thugs went, while also not being seen as an old man. Ogami then grabs a motorcycle, borrows it, stealing with a promise of return, and drives off. Tenma, not really caring about the situation, decides, let's just go home. When our capo goes, no, they're our friends. We save those things, and he's like, oh, well, if my crush says so, I guess I'll do it. So of course he jogs all the way to the stadium where Ogami is. Was reverted back to being a child somehow. Anyway, we jump into the actual fight in the stadium, where we reveal the two kidnappers not to be just randos, but rather two assassins, hitmen from the Jordan Association. So now we're going to have a fight between a young athlete and a former hitman turned middle schooler versus two professional Jordan assassins. one of them wielding a golf club, who I feel a spiritual bond to somehow. Again, a great twisty chapter. My God, this roller coaster has loop-de-loops in it, and we're getting further and further into the narrative. So interesting. We're not going to have a competition like we usually do, like a game or some sort, but we're having an actual out-and-out brawl here between, adults and kids. So fascinatingly changed. I'm wanting to see where this goes. I'm a little upset that Norin's sort of a damsel in distress in this. I mean, I don't know. Would have been funnier if it was like Tenma or anybody else who got kidnapped, just not Norin. I mean, it makes sense, thematically. It's a part of the narrative. She is the like daughter that he's never had or never really connected to, so he has to feel like he's protecting her in some way, even though he does have a daughter. So I don't know. I mean, it's also in the plot, she's sort of an important part of a bigger corporation. Of course, she's going to get kidnapped by some assholes who want to use her. Anyway, looking forward to the next chapter. Tenmaku Cinema, Chapter 18. How do you deal with a panic attack? Alright, you just calm down, stop, end the day early, go home. So, yeah, of course, because they couldn't do the actual scene, they couldn't make the shots right, they decided to end the shoot and do it the next morning when they still had a little bit of time left in the early morning. So, of course, Hajime then has to try to figure out how to get Kurai to actually take the scene on. And he finds her just as he wanders around in the middle of the night and chases her down to just kind of explain the whole situation about how the narrative is supposed to flow. What is Nagisa's mother drama, and how that can be portrayed and what we need to see emotionally here. But of course, this also leads into Kurai's own emotional drama herself with her own parent, who's been a helicopter, constantly trying to get her to be an actor the way she wants her daughter to be an actor. And that's just kind of killed the fun for acting for Kurai, who has been trying to make the entire thing fun for her from the beginning. So using that motivation, using that little bit of information, we get the scene done the next morning. Really fast, snappy, like just quick and dirty. Yep, we get the emotion. It's not what we want necessarily, but it's something, and it ends the actual filming for this. So now the next scene they're going to be working on is going to be the final scene that they've shoot, which is in the rain, which they need a rainy day for, and Kurai's looking forward to it. Unfortunately, what she doesn't see coming is her own returning mother, who has just come back and sees she's been out for a few days with her stuff, her work stuff. So there's going to be some conflict coming up soon. This series is really demanding in anime. Like, we're 18 chapters in. This is barely the beginning of this narrative, and I would hate to see this ending early. We need this to be animated. I'd love to see the movie. The way the story seems to be going, because we're inching closer and closer to the actual movie being made, finally being edited and premiered somewhere, and that's going to be a big arc into itself. Like, hey, look, this is the thing we created on our own without anybody knowing that we made this movie, except for maybe like a few faculty who might be in on it already by this point. So we get this movie that we're going to be seeing. Like, we're actually going to see the movie. The way the narrative is kind of flowing is that we're kind of being piecemeal the narrative of the movie as the story goes on, and we kind of get an understanding what the shore is supposed to be. But man, is it just demanding that to be animated. So, like, again, this is really early on. We're in the scary bit of Shonen Jump stuff here, where anything can happen. The series could be canceled at any moment. This is terrifying. So, looking forward to seeing where this goes, how this progresses, and hopefully it stays around long enough to get that anime adaptation. I'm just saying, it would be a shame not to see the shore. Fabricant 100, Chapter 34. Super secret combo technique, Ashby 100's Fire Fist. Anyway, so of course the end of last chapter is the beginning of this chapter with Ashby throwing one massive punch that then just gets deflected by 99's ice wall. Number 1 runs the hell off because he's not going to die to this, leaving 99 to basically stall him. And stall him he does for a little bit. Unfortunately, throwing up those ice walls got the water vapor to rise up as, the Fire Fist keeps evaporating them, meaning there's no water vapor for 99 to cling on to, leaving him open to a good old punch to the face, which then disintegrates him into ash. Now, Ashby is actually literally on fire. It wasn't like him combining with 100, but rather just grabbing her fire somehow and using that to punch his opponents. He then goes and hugs number 100, who is frozen, so, the fire gets taken out by the ice, and says to her, please go after number 1, we need to get him. Unfortunately, there is a problem. Yeah, so Ashby's actually burnt. His healing factor is a healing factor, certainly. It can heal his wounds, it can, certainly cut open his body and manipulate his blood, but it can only go so far. He can't really do this forever, and unfortunately, if the wounds are too great, his wounds will essentially still be around. In other words, if he gets hurt too much, he'll become damaged goods, meaning that 100 won't want him anymore. And this is that point. 100 looks down at the broken Ashby, saying, I don't want to play with this toy anymore, drops him, and walks out the room, ending the chapter. And to be honest, I seriously thought this was going to be the last chapter of the series. It was really gearing up for with the big punch and finale with the big bad here and 100 down, the last chapter. But this one sort of still leans into the next one probably being the final, because this is running through a big finale with an emotional turn for 100 possibly, where she either reveals that no, she actually does care for Ashby and wants to do right by him, even though he's no longer valuable to her as a product. But at the same time, I look at this going, yeah, I wouldn't have minded this ending here. To be honest, it was kind of tragic, sad, no real catharsis, no real motivation. Just the fight's not over. They're still raging out there somewhere. Sorry, not going to see that story because it got canceled. I really like this series for what it is. I'm really going to be sad when it does get canceled because it's on its way out. There's no way this is the beginning of a longer story arc or a more developed one. This is pretty much the the editors are saying wrap your series up. You have up into the next volume at the end of it for it to be over, so we can at least recoup the cost in sales at least. So I'm sad. This had a really cool moment in it, and it's a really fun twist there at the end where our big robot lady is unfortunately leaving us for greener pastures. It's a dark moment, and I'm looking forward to the series continuing, though I am unfortunately in fear because it is again in the 30s where it is in the danger zone. So yeah, that's a sad one, but that's what happens. Cypher Academy, Chapter 36. I'm here to save Anonymous, even though she doesn't want to be saved. So, yeah, we're here to save Anonymous from the snakes. And we reveal that the puzzle that we're going to have to solve is number 100, the 100th puzzle since the beginning of the series, which is impressive. There's been 100 of them. And it's on paper. In a game where the rules state you can't use anything that isn't of nature. So, immediately asking the question, wait, isn't that against the rules? They tell us, fuck the rules, we made our own paper. Out of grass that we cut using tools we made out of the materials around us. Which it's just mind-boggling how, within a few hours they were able to not only make rudimentary axes and scythes, but they were also able to make and produce paper using regular-ass forest grass. Just, oh my god, it's just so convoluted. And of course, our boy solves it in the longest 30 seconds humanly possible. They have an entire ass conversation that is longer than 30 seconds in order to have this entire conversation happen, for them to then reveal the answer to the problem was to lick the paper, because it was actually a hidden message inside the paper after you lick it. Yeah, 100 questions, the 100th was licking the paper. Anyway, so he saves the Anonymous. They jump off the tree house that they're in to get they're hiding in, and then they run into a new opportunity. It seems two of the snakes were captured by one of the slugs. So now Iraha's at an intersection. He could either avoid the entire situation and let the slug take the two snakes, or try to take the slug risking the two snakes attacking. But that's going to do it for the chapter. At this point, I'm just hate reading this. There is little redeemable about this. Again, the art's great, the composers are nice, but the plot is just bonkers stupid. Like, there are just things that a high schooler shouldn't know or shouldn't be so easy to know in this scenario. Like these are like bag-headed assassin creepy women who somehow were able to not only find and make puzzles and tools out of the materials they were just randomly in this dense forest, but were also capable of creating something with a specific reference to Lewis Carroll of all things. These are Japanese students. How many of them honestly read Alice in Wonderland? Seriously. I mean, is it big there? I feel like there are other stories that are much more culturally, appropriate that they could have pulled from, but really, Lewis Carroll. This feels like the artist is a little bit too navel-gazing about all the things he's read, and producing a material that comes out. And, like, at the same time, we're going to be probably seeing, Fabricant 100 being canceled soon, or something else being canceled soon. Cypher Academy is going to continue on getting more and more volumes, producing more of this sort of like, aha, I read this book once, and now I'm making the story about it kind of writing, and not being very interesting about it. Yeah, I know there's guys like Araki who do something similar, but where Araki's art style was weird and complex, his stories were also fun and weird and complex, and weren't covered in characters who I generally dislike. Because, I mean, all these people, the reason they know all of this is because they're rich, or from affluent families, or from circumstances that allow them to be able to get this information. Wherein, like, JoJo's Bizarre Adventure is just about basically anybody's. Some of them are rich, certainly, like Joestar's at the beginning, but as the series moves on, they're getting poorer and poorer and more working class, while also having their own privileges that come up naturally rather than being sort of unnatural like this writing here. Even when their stuff is weird, like the rods in part 6 with a certain son of Dio, or with the bizarreness that is the mafia in part 5. Those are fine because it's still just weird and wacky. This here is like, it tries to be weird and wacky, but it also kind of tries to be super serious and make it feel like these characters are something we should be either both rooting for or against based off of their alliances or hatred of certain characters. Again, I hate reading this. I want this to be canceled just so the artist can move on to a different project that isn't so up its own ass, for lack of a kinder word. The Ichinose Family's Deadly Sins, Chapter 37. Oh god, Mom, jump scare! Alright, so, of course, we see Tsubasa waking up and finding Nakajima has come over. Apparently Nakajima saw him on TV and said, hey man, I'm on summer vacation, but what the hell? So they hang out and sort of reveal the problems that Tsubasa's having, as well as what the situation actually is. And it is that this family he's made up here, with Soda and Kenta and the woman whose name I forget, it's basically just, they're a bunch of broken people. They're broken people from broken families that are all just sort of running away from the responsibilities. And Nakajima even points this out. Like, you had all this stuff happening, Tsubasa. The dream, the threatening letters, the abusive parents. Like, you have all this stuff to deal with. Why are you not there? And Tsubasa sort of just answers that he's tired. He's tired of this. Tired of constantly trying his best and failing to deal with the problems his family is presenting him. He's trying his best to maintain this order, but it's just arguing and complaining and abuse toward one family member in particular, being Soda. He just can't take it anymore. He ran off. And he asked Nakajima, as Nakajima's leaving, like, what are you doing? Like, he's like, well, I don't know. I have my own family problems. And they argue and they complain to each other about how I quit playing soccer. But I don't really have anything else to go. I can only be here. And he goes home. And then it makes Tsubasa question, why am I running away? Is running away the best option? And of course, the chapter ends not on Tsubasa's note, but rather on his mother and his father arguing with each other about going and getting Tsubasa back. And the father pointing out, like, no, you don't understand. You can't go, I'll go, because we both want to make the ideal family the way we want to. Which just, as itself can be read as a few different ways. One, of course, like that he's being just sympathetic, like he wants to make the best family he can, and be the family that Tsubasa wants, not necessarily the family that they currently have, but something better. Or he's talking in a more ethereal way, like something that hasn't yet been attained here. So there's a mystery still going on, even if it isn't really up in the forefront right now. I'm really digging the series. It's continuing forward up into the later 30s, so it's sticking around. Hopefully it'll last another volume here, just so we can get some more answers at least. And of course, we have the reveal of a possible motivation for the parents to try to create something for the mysteries, as well as, Nakajima basically pointing out, we have shifted gears. Where was the original plot? We still are dealing with that. So we now have two plot threads to resolve. The home family and now the abuse family. So, again, it's a fascinating story. It really does dive into the nature of, nurturing and family units and what it means to be a family and what that can actually incur, which, gets covered by a lot of Shonen Jump work. I mean, One Piece is definitely about fan family and family abuse, but, this is exclusively about that. It's, only about that. And also some psychological horror shit. So, hey, I'm looking forward to it. I hope that it continues forward. I hope it doesn't get canceled. Oh god, I would not want Cypher Academy to be the only thing in the 30s I'm reading. Akane chapter 74. And the beginning of this chapter is the capstone to the arc, where we get Ikon talking to Gakumon about the event, and actually apparently about his choice for Futatsume being the 4th place winner, deciding not to choose Akane or Kaichi for reasons that are bizarre to me. They'll get theirs eventually, so I'm not going to promote them this time, even though they did better than the guy he is promoting. So, this then kind of leads into Gakumon being recommended to going to the festival, the Shiguma Festival, the Shiguma Schools Festival, the one run by our boy. So, and of course, attended by our girl. Akane is still sort of reeling from her loss. She's clearly kind of gazing out into the world, when of course her good old big brother is saying, "Well, we gotta be well at this competition too. We gotta survive in this environment, meaning to make this local neighborhood event be the best it can be, and that way is with yakisoba, not rakugo, but good old yakisoba. But no, not yakisoba, candy apples. No, not candy apples or yakisoba, yakiniku. No, not any of that food stuff. It's time for some good old Michael Jackson." So yeah, the school is divided, but now it's a friendly competition of not rakugo, but rather of festivals. And this leads into this new arc where they all basically compete to be the best at running this festival, which is a great change-up. We're going from the more rakugo-heavy arc of the direct competition to more of something slice-of-life-ish, a little more down-to-earth, to get Akane back on her feet, because she's clearly still reeling from her big loss at the end of the last arc. She, got second. That's not bad, but it's not first, leading her own rival to kind of dismiss her, be disappointed, and her herself being disappointed, losing with her own father's rakugo, which is still impressive. It was still an amazing performance. Just unfortunately, the audience didn't feel the way that most of the other people felt. And that leads us to this new arc, which is going to involve our good old girl doing something that's a little closer to home. Customer service. She can do that well. She was trained well. So let's see how Akane bounces back. Blue Box, Chapter 113. A color cover showing soul-crushing disappointment. Alright, we begin this chapter with more Hina, because apparently this wasn't enough last time. So it starts out with a weird gift card contest that, of course, Taiki loses, but then demands Hina to help him. And she's like, yeah, I'll do it, does something a little funny, but then kind of just runs away. Apparently, Hina's feeling still a bit distant about the situation, knowing that, she's fully lost her chance to be with Taiki, admitting it too late and not actually ever attempting to do it until it was too late. We get Hina just kind of lamenting and trying to distance herself from the entire affair. Then comes Kyo, who does something interesting. He admits he has a crush, but not on Hina or anybody we know, but rather his next-door neighbor, who apparently he admitted to. And she rejected him because he just wasn't her type. She kept seeing him as a younger brother to him. And Kyo went, oh. And one day he saw her coming home with a new guy and got angry. But then he assessed the situation. He could be angry at her and resent her and be distant, but that would mean he'd lose a friend, a person he's lived with for a while and knows intimately. As a friend, but still intimately. So he decided, instead of reveling in that anger or letting that dark memory fester, he decided to eat it and move on and still be her friend, even if he can't be with her romantically. And that leads Hina to her own decision. Seeing Taiki still trying his best to win that contest, and even though the contest is well over, he finally succeeds, even though that doesn't really matter anymore. He still lost. He's an idiot. A strong idiot. A reliable idiot. But a good friend nonetheless. So Hina swallows her pain, swallows her disappointment, and decides, I'll be his friend. And then, with that, she finally signs the deed and moves into her home in the friend zone. A great send-off to this arc for Hina, honestly. I'm really happy to see her moving the fuck on already. I mean, she's asking to meet new guys, is asking to get out there and be with new people. So, clearly this is not going to be a love triangle between Hina, Chinatsu, and Taiki anymore. Or at least it doesn't seem to be on the surface. She's finally getting over her own drama, or her own, failings as a romantic interest. So this opens up a lot of things. The story still has a lot of threads to go through and a lot of interesting twists it can make, because we still have, we just began this relationship. Relationship is not built in just, I like you, you like me, we're going to stay together forever. There's clearly going to be some conflict coming in, some disagreements, some arguments that should be happening. And the series feels like it's going to do such things in the future. So, hey, I'm looking forward to seeing more of this. It is in the 113s. It is about to go into 114. So, hey, I'm for it. I'm looking into it. I'm actually kind of also surprised by Kyo revealing that his crush wasn't Hina, because early on, this felt like he was talking about a younger Hina when he was describing his romantic interest. But this chapter's like, no, it wasn't Hina. It was actually some other girl we have never met to. But, we drew a lot of information here, so it wasn't a lie. It wasn't like him just bullshitting that answer. No, it was actually a different person. Because, art is subjective, but at the same time, what you see isn't necessarily the reality you believe it is. Just because it looked like Hina didn't mean it was Hina. I mean, come on, guys. It wasn't Josuke who saved Josuke as a kid in Part 4. It was some other guy who just looks like Josuke. Witch Watch, Chapter 121. Khan is on the attack. Yeah, apparently getting back his resolve, he takes on the coward, and the coward runs the hell off. Yeah, apparently the Dream Wizard doesn't really want to try to deal with him in his dream, because he's too powerful there. So he decides to run off and find a hostage. So he finds the hostage and pulls both the hostage, himself, and Khan into her dream. And there, Khan is shown to be a hero in Manifest. Because he tried to save the girls, so she sees him as a hero. Sees the warlock as the villain, And then, out of nowhere, the entire cast of Uran Mirage shows up. Yep, indeed, Uran Mirage. And they all decide to clown on this dumbass and take one big swing, and he wakes up right before it hits. He then passes out immediately because it scared the shit out of him. Of course, Khan laments, going, "Yeah, it's weird. We both sort of pursued power, but I got lucky in where I came up." But of course, he then lets the hostage go. The hostage then picks up the phone and reveals that she's the actual mangaka of Uran Mirage. So this all just ties together into one of the greatest things ever. Khan wins this match through the power of crossover. Mwah! Chef's kiss. This was brilliant. What an amazing way to end this entire little fight between Khan and the Dream Wizard. It's just, I loved it to death. I do fear like this sort of like oh wow, this might be the last of Uran Mirage, because this is a perfect send off. This is a thing of threes. We had 2 Uran Mirage chapters, and now this is just a wonderful way to end that story arc. But that does leave us with 2 more fights, with Keigo and Morihito versus their 2 opponents, and oh boy, this arc is not quite over yet. But man, I'm just so glad they clowned on him. He was such a coward. Oh, this foggy smoke loser. Sakamoto Days, Chapter 131. Kashima's only half the man he used to be. Alright, so everyone's back in Japan, and now they're torturing Kashima to try to figure out where Slur is, or at least what Slur's deal is. Heisuke is not joining in, unfortunately. He's still dealing with his emotional damage from whatever happened to Hyo. Of course, though, while they're torturing him, Hana comes in and steals him from under their nose. Apparently, Hana decides that Kashima's being just bullied by her father, and takes him off to get repaired. So she gets him some tank treads, a fan from mobility, some grabby hands for grabbing things, and Wi-Fi of all things. So of course, this leads Kashima to go I'm his enemy, right? And she's like, yeah, but Dad doesn't really do anything like that. He's all about this community, and really through Hana, he gets shown that Taro really does care for the community he built, and he's there to protect that community, that family that he's made through his goodwill. That's why he fights, and clearly Kashima doesn't really have anyone he's protecting or fighting for, which then leads to a car crash about to hit Hana in the middle of nowhere. Of course, Kashima decides to jump in the way and try to stop it, but can't on his own. But then, of course, Sakamoto actually steps in, Sakamoto Taro, that is, and at least thanks him for doing the good deed of saving his daughter. So, with finding some resolve, Kashima decides to cooperate and work towards saving Slur. This is an amazing chapter. Again, it's not the most dynamic. I mean, the car crash is one thing, but the rest of it is just some goofy fun in the middle of the town. But that belies the actual message of the story, which is what Sakamoto actually represents. He's not necessarily just a run-of-the-mill convenience store owner. He is a member of the community that he wants to work towards and protect. He's not just there to facilitate more fights, but he's there to act as a better member of the community, which is why he wants to get rid of this hit on him so he doesn't keep causing more damage, protecting the family he's built up. So it's just phenomenal, especially considering what that also pays back, because Kashima was only built back up because Taro put in the work. He's able to walk again, or tread again, because Sakamoto built that community. I mean, heck, and he did it so efficiently. I mean, only 2,000 yen, less than $20 USD for all those repairs. He got Wi-Fi for less than 2,000 yen installed. And you know where you can get those prices? Only in Sakamoto Days. Ayakashi Triangle, Chapter 140. Now, ironically enough, Ayakashi Triangle was on last week, along with Jiangshi X, which I did read both of those chapters. I just didn't comment on them because, it's only 2 chapters a week. It's sort of boring. And it's also cheating. But either way, I did read it. It's kind of, napkin summary of it. Suzu combines with the other three personalities to become Final Suzu to fight the Gogyo-sen. Meanwhile, Matsuri gets whatever he was going to get from Soga, which is a mystery into this chapter. So this chapter continues the fight, where the Gogyo-sen grows more arms to then use those to summon golems in order to try to overtake Suzu, which she then answers by using a flurry of spirit fist punches. Like a Gomu Gomu no molesty hand punch. So, because, those are a callback to one of the spells she used prior to this, which was about molesting. So, disturbing, but a fun callback. But, of course, punching those golems was, of course, a distraction. So, catching her on the back foot, the Gogyo-sen launched an attack, which almost takes her down if it wasn't for Matsuri coming in for the save, revealing that they got their the thing they needed from Soga, and that is Fundoshi. It was going so well. Like, it was like some serious stuff going on. There was clashes, battles, and the writer remembered what series he was writing. All of a sudden, he just had to throw in all of this cheesecake, which is fine. I mean, you get what you pay for. Literally, this is the guy who drew To Love Ru. Of course he's going to do this kind of stuff. It's sort of obvious. That's what I get for starting it. But hey, what you do? The art's still fantastic. The choreography's still great. The callbacks are fantastic for what they are, even if they are a little bit silly at points. But hey, that's why it's on Manga Plus and not in Shonen Jump, and I'm sort of kind of glad it did, because skipping a week and then seeing this in the comeback would have been a little bit too much, to be honest. Undead Unluck, Chapter 171. Color cover, depicting the truth about smoking. If you smoke, you'll be left out in the cold. Anyway, this chapter is mostly about Chikara and his relationship with the rest of the gang, now that in this time loop where his family is alive. He wanting to repay the team for saving his family. Fuko's like, you already paid me. You've literally given me the life I never had. I never got to go to high school, she says, because she didn't. She was unlucky, and if she touched anyone, even slightly, she would have ruined her life there. So she didn't go, and now after 200 years of experience, she now is able to be herself, be able to be in high school without worrying about like the powers that she has going out of control or getting out of her control. So Chikara is looking towards the future, worrying that he's going to be losing his new friends, and but it's going to be after the closing ceremony. Then the closing ceremony comes, and everyone's already forgotten about Fuko and the gang. The entire school's gone back to what it was before, much to his shock. But unfortunately, there is a reason. Unfortunately, Color has come to life and is unfortunately attacking the school internally. And Fuko and the gang have to chase him down and stop him. Because, of course, Color's an Uma. Umas are jerks. And, of course, this then leads to Fuko showing her own priority, not relenting, deciding, no, I'm going to save Chikara's life through, stopping this from happening, stopping this creature from causing mayhem that would hurt him. And, revealing her own priorities about, keeping a friend safe. So, great chapter. I still love Fuko. I think she's a fantastic main character, especially just after all the events of the rest of the series. She's really, really becoming a phenomenal main lead for the series. She is Andy and her are perfect together, and I'm really looking forward to Andy coming back, mostly because having two of them being together is insanely powerful. And of course the jokes are brilliant in this, literally Sean closing his eyes during a photo, not showing up, classic. And I mean, so you can't move, so you're shaking the camera around. It's called a tripod, idiot. Just use a fucking tripod. Jesus Christ. And of course, top it all off, they have the color Uma being spelled right. Their U is important, damn it. So, either way, great chapter, wonderful like build up to the next chapter, which might be the end of the arc here, or at least the penultimate chapter for the arc. So looking forward to the next one. My Hero Academia, chapter 397. And so we got the continued fight between Armored All Might and All for One. And of course, All Might is just pushing every single button he can to just get this kid to be angry at him. This kid who is actually older than him. But either way, and of course it works. All for One just kind of throws everything he can at him. Of course, All Might, blocks it with his Tokuyami Dark Shadow Shield. And of course, All for One points out, like, hey man, I'm literally all-powerful. I have nothing but time and energy to just destroy every shield and toy you have. You have no powers. And of course, Toshinori, All Might's like, yeah, I don't have all that. You're absolutely right. Which then leads to a small flashback of him meeting his mentor, Shimura. And then that leads to All Might punching All for One then blasting him away, and that's it? The chapter's over? That was 7 pages. 7 pages! Horikoshi, are you okay? Like, no, seriously, are you okay? Because, I mean, Jesus Christ. Okay, just gonna kind of pull back the production side of things. Usually when I see, like, My Hero Academia, when I read it, I always kind of note, like, where he takes shortcuts, where, like, instead of, showing a picture, he usually has, like, word balloons with, like, a black or gradient background, which he does at least once in this chapter. But for the most part, all the pages are dedicated pieces of art with specific individual drawings that lead to more and more pieces of art, which are all great, by the way. Like, these panels and this art is crisp, clean, very, very professional, like brilliant work all around. I'm always enamored by Horikoshi's work, but like 7 pages makes me think he is in pain. Like, he's clearly suffering from something. I really hope he's okay. And honestly, well, yeah, we're on the final arc. We're like really nearing the end. I wouldn't be against telling him to take like a month off, because like if he's struggling to get 7 pages out a week, like he was getting like 15 to 10, now to 7, like he's getting burnt out. And I'm not telling him to end a series. I sincerely want him to finish it properly. I want a good ending for My Hero Academia, and maybe like something less intense for him later on. Maybe a slice of life story if he really wants to continue making comics, or possibly just going on to general illustrations, stuff that isn't as intensive as it is, because he's clearly suffering from it. Because I'd rather Horikoshi alive and doing less than him doing more and then dying early. I want this candle to last, damn it. I don't want it to burn out too quickly. So seriously, I know he's not listening to this. I know no one's listening to this. But Horikoshi, seriously, take a break. You earned it. You're into 300. You're almost at 400. You really don't need to rush this. Take your damn time, please. And that's going to do it for this week. A lot of chapters, a lot of comics. Glad to be back. Too bad One Piece is off next week. But hey, we're going to get some other things like Jiangxi X and more Cypher Academy. Anyway, clearly it's going to be an off week for One Piece, meaning there's going to be something else kind of putting its foot down, maybe something new, or maybe there's going to be a big event and something else, maybe Jujutsu Kaisen or Elusive Samurai. So there's something to look forward to for those who read those things. But for me, I'm just enjoying my polls. Anyway, like, favorite, comment, subscribe, do a dance, because it's 4 times 2, 20. Bye!